So here's a funny little bit of computing history. So I'm at a random thrift store in Ventura, California, and I'm just looking through their piles of crap, and what do I find? OLPC laptop. How the hell it wound up at a thrift store in Ventura, California, I will never know. But it was $20, and it has issues, and here we are. So, it has issues? Yep, it doesn't turn on. It never boots, and from what I understand, I've been reading some of the documentation online about this, is that apparently because of horribly stupid design decisions, if the CMOS battery goes bad, it kind of shits the bed and refuses to boot, which has got to be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. But apparently there are, you know, and fixing it isn't that easy either. From what I can tell, you have to basically, some of the early firmware had some bugs in it, and the way you fix it is you update the firmware, and if you haven't updated the firmware, it's kind of a bit of an affair. You have to take it apart and hang a serial terminal off one of the internal buses, and that'll do it for you, which is spectacularly stupid, but you know, there you go. Turns out there's actually, you know, for something which made such a big deal about, like, open, you know, free, open, blah, 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 wank, wank, wank. It turns out that they have a lot of provisions for locking the snot out of them, which is weird, go figure. But anyways, so I figure we'll just have a poke around inside, and it's kind of a little piece of computing history almost, which is one of the reasons I bought it. So I'm just looking here. And there's the motherboard, and there is the battery. Which was kind of not entirely seated. So, just on the working assumption that the battery is hosed. Looks kind of bulgy. 2 volts. But isn't this supposed to be a 3-volt battery? It's an ML1220. Yeah, so that is a 3-volt CMOS battery. So that could very well be the problem. So, what I have to do is I have to set the clock, which is this debug connector right there. And look at that, this is quite interesting. Look at how little communication goes through the hinge. There's this 6-wire connection and this 2-wire connection, which I would imagine is probably power. And that's the only interconnectivity through the hinge. Up here you can see it's a board-on-board module. Looks like it's a Marvell Semi. And that just has the 2 antennas which go off into the ears. That's quite interesting. So this is a USB port, but this is like it's a through the circuit board USB port. It actually fits into a slot. They've got another one over here. They're all like that actually. They're all mounted mid-board. So what I think I'm going to do is put the display back in without putting the back panel on, because then I can test it. traffic. Stop. So. You can just see that here we have something. So if I turn on my decoder, bus status on, excuse me, is 1. Page fault. Interesting. So yeah, definitely it's cranky. So that is about what I expected. So what happens is that apparently the non-volatile memory goes and then everything just shits a brick. Because somebody designed something well. And by well I mean horribly. Also, hey, I have bus decoders. So I think, given that I can basically confirm that's what it is. So here we are, I'm connected up with my serial terminal, and you can see time has not been set since the real-time clock battery was released, blah 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 blah, page fault, okay. Let's see. So it looks like I have a command line interface. So anyways, it's alive! There's one problem fixed in any event. So yeah, it was indeed the RTC shitting a brick. Because apparently it likes bricks, or it has interesting intestinal disorders. So I will, it's kind of, as soon as I disconnect it right at this point, it's just going to go south again because it doesn't have a battery. I need to track down an actual replacement battery, but hey, problem solved. And it's actually booting. Actually, this is kind of interesting. Let's have a look at what the OS looks like. It's a little touchy right now. This is not the best connection. This is not the correct power adapter. It works. Hey, I just saw Xorg. Something down there is flashing. Don't know what that LED is. That is the Wi-Fi LED, I think. We've got some typically disgusting Xorg cursors. Hey, it lives! Apparently the battery is both empty and fully charged. Well, that's cute. It's an oscilloscope. It's an FFT. That's adorable. So how do I close? Chat, browse. What browser does it use? Not that peppy, is it? Christ. Whatever. Hey, I has the Googles. But is that locally cached? Yeah. Oh, that looks like Firefuck. So how do I... Well, keyboard buttons don't seem to do... Oh, wait, there, now they're working. It's got this fancy pants transflectus screen. I don't know what these buttons do. Oh, and they do something. Typical trite community crap, I'd imagine. Search. Oh, hey. Wow, it looks like the last time this thing was used was 6 years ago. Assuming that these are to accurate timestamps. I think it's fairly accurately set with regard to the current date. I'm not entirely certain. Anyways, there you go. So that's just the trivial hang a serial terminal off it fix for an OLPC with stupid. Well, much later, I've updated the firmware and the built-in really horribly slow operating system. And as you can see now, I am computinating with all of the blazing speed of a 700 megahertz AMD Geode underclocked to 533 megahertz. For power reasons. I'm trying to get it unlocked. They have this obnoxious web crap you have to jump through to get the firmware unlocked. But you can see it has the Googles. It's got linked up. It actually, the firmware that it came with didn't support WPA, which is hilarious. But I mean, it looks like the buttons of hilarity work. I guess that's like a bigger scroll. Oh hey, that's kind of cute. So this screen is like really rather horribly low resolution. It's got like this funky RGB grayscale shenanigans where when you totally dim it, it's effectively like a transflective grayscale, and when you turn it on, it's color. So I mean, it's basically, for all intents and purposes, it looks grayscale when there's no backlight, and then it appears to be color when there is, but the resolution drops out due to the fact that basically right now, of course, because it's only displaying monochromatic, it's effectively many times the resolution, because it doesn't take 3 subpixels to display a single pixel. It uses them all discretely. But, you know, actually the volume keys don't seem to work, or they're not enabled. But yeah, I figured, you know, so it works. I haven't really looked at the, I haven't really had a chance to actually look at the hardware, so why don't we take a look at the, you know, actually look over what's in here first, before I put it back together. So, let's see, I just latch that. This will also kind of be a good litmus test as to whether the firmware update I did, which should prevent it from needing the debricking procedure I had to jump through, actually worked. So under here, barely, you know, mildly warm to the touch, is the AMD Geode. Here's the fucked up battery holder, which apparently doesn't really hold. I'll have to buy a new battery for that probably tomorrow. Oh, hello, thermal pad. Yep. So, thermal pad. So here is our MOBO. 1 second. So motherboard. So there's our main processor, AMD Geode. Looks like it's actually underfilled, which is kind of intriguing. Is that compliant? That's a hard epoxy underfill. Interesting. So this is fairly obviously SRAM. USB, DC stuff. There's a lot of unpopulated sections on the board, which I find kind of intriguing. I wonder what some of the stuff is. I mean, it looks like this is part of this DC to DC, but they didn't need to put this diode there. Another DC to DC. This is one of the speakers. This chip here, the display connector is right here, so I would imagine this is their So one of the things they talk about in the documentation is how they can actually gate power to most of the motherboard, and this chip apparently functions as a like a display driver, like a standalone display driver, and it can, I would imagine, together with this chip here, which looks like SRAM. So what happens is, I believe these two chips together can basically form a static display buffer, so they can turn off the processor, or basically gate power to the processor until basically presumably one of the buttons generates an interrupt, which causes the processor to change the contents of the display. But this chip together with this SRAM apparently is capable of generating all the refresh signals needed to just display a static image, which is fairly intriguing. So that's kind of one of the power controls, and you can see a lot of this nice length equalization and all these little manufacturing test points. So moving further over, this I would imagine is the north bridge of some sort. Up here you can see here is the serial interface. Here's where these are the two serial lines, and then here's the ground. ED1888. This is probably audio related. One of the audio outputs. Here's another one of these USB. You can see these interesting USBs that go through the board connectors. Audio outputs are right here. Big coupling caps. I bet those are serious coupling caps. Here's our audio, or excuse me, Wi-Fi, which is based on an 88W8388. Q7A, blah blah blah. You can see this is a board with connectivity through cache-related vias. Moving down here, we have more. This I bet that's the flash. This thing has a gargantuan entire 1 GB of flash memory somewhere, presumably there. 88 ALP01 from Marvel. I don't know what that is. More interesting stuff here. And then you can see down here that the entire connectivity going through the hinge are these 2 wires and these 6 wires. So I'd imagine this is probably like the keyboard connector, and this is probably like power. So I'm actually quite interested. I'm going to take the bottom section apart in just a minute, because I'd like to see how the bottom stuff works. I'm quite curious as to how they're managing the well, I guess because the battery can only, well, So here's power input. Excuse me. I guess this could be the switching power supply. One thing you might notice is there's actually a 3-amp fuse down here. One thing that's quite nice is that this is it's the specifications for the DC input on this are 11 to 18 volts, and it's apparently capable of tolerating like -24 to 36 volts DC. So it's the DC input is very much more robust than most of these normally are, which is probably what some of this stuff in here is. Big surface mount tantalums or electrolytics. You can see more LEDs. They have LEDs on both sides of the board, which is kind of cute. So anyways, so I may put it back together, because I don't think the CMOS battery really matters anymore now that I've got a firmware version that's recent enough that it doesn't care. So it's kind of, I'm a little impressed that they managed to produce something with, I mean, that's like, hello bug. I mean, really, something where you'd lose the CMOS battery and it doesn't boot anymore? That's pretty lame. I mean, in terms of like stupid ass bugs to put out in production hardware, that's pretty spectacular. I can't remember which of these holes were used. Actually, while I have that out, wow, look at this. It looks like that's almost been like vacuum deposited with metallization. It's very, very heavily metallized. Wow. It's like 1 ohm. So I guess that's EMI protection of some sort. But man, that's hardcore EMI, blocking. Anyways, that's much more heavily metallized than I would have assumed it really would need to be. What just happened? Oh, bam. Alright. So here we are. We have, there's the connector. So first things first, looks like I was correct in that basically this is entirely for the touchpad. Actually, see, that's kind of intriguing. So the battery connection runs down across and then in. And everything is indeed just in the display. Actually, that's a funny idea. I wonder. It may bitch about not hiding the keyboard. Yeah, so here's the, looks like we have keyboard controller and touchpad controller, I would assume. And then I would bet those are the mouse buttons. Oh fuck, and then there's more screws. Looks like I broke that one. Oops. It actually appears there's a magnet right here. Yeah. So I wonder if it uses that to determine if it's closed. Yeah, it does. So it looks like this magnet is presumably there's a Hall effect sensor there somewhere. You can see the magnet right there. But that is an F. I can't make it out. It's all made by Alps though. Anyways, there you go. So there's the keyboard matrix. A giant touchpad. I wonder if that'll come out actually. Them with tape. Oh wait, no, those are just ribbons. It's quite nice. I mean, look, they've got like a fairly substantial metal sheet in here just to kind of hold it all together. I just wish the keys were bigger. Okay, put it back together. Hey, I think I just found JavaScript. I really wish there was like an H top. Nope, not for you. Amused. I don't even know what ganache is. Probably Linux shell crap. Anyways. Well, nothing else. I have a nice little portable X-term. Wireless X-term. Not much going on my server right now.